Sir from 17 once again. This is my E3 2015 coverage, and I'm going to be going through each of the press conferences that I watched via streams, and I jotted down some notes while I did so. So the very first one that I did was the Bethesda Conference. It happened yesterday, and I'm just going to go through it now with you guys. So this is the first time Bethesda have done a press conference like this in a while. I don't know if this is the first one they've ever done, but suffice to say, it was a nice surprise to see it, and of course, we were all expecting Fallout 4, and whatever else they showed was just kind of the icing on the cake. So the very first thing that they opened with Doom. And a new Doom is kind of a big thing. Doom was one of the games that birthed first-person shooters as a genre, and there's a very special place in my heart for that game. And what they showed on this new one is they're trying to pay homage to the old school mentalities that Doom spawned in a modern context. And I think the idea of it is great. And I wish them the best in trying to take the feeling of playing the older Dooms and bring it into a modern context, because I do think right now that first-person shooters are such a very specific thing that an old-school mentality could really open some doors. But I thought the gameplay they showed looked fucking awful. The longer it went on, the worse it looked. It just did absolutely nothing for me. I thought visually it didn't look that impressive. I thought the animations where everybody was clapping and getting excited for them did absolutely nothing for me. Like the glowingness that the enemies had on them, like on Rise when he was doing the executions and things, could be a really cool mechanic, but it just didn't do anything. Like when he killed one of those enemies with the chainsaw and it literally looked like a creeper from Minecraft dying, like visually I wasn't digging it, and it looked tired, it looked old, and it looked sad. But I think that might just be me, because a lot of people in the chat when we were talking as the conference was happening, a lot of people were really stoked for it, thought it looked cool. I didn't. In a post-Wolfenstein world, I don't even know what Doom means anymore, and I'm really excited to see where this goes, because from what they've shown, nothing. The most deflating possible way to start a conference for me. I didn't like it. And the notes that I put, Doom Sun in bold, then I put looks like shit, which I think it did. Multiplayer looks too slow to homage old school arena shooters, which they showed a bit of multiplayer afterwards, and if you ever played the old school Doom, Quake, Unreal Tournament kind of games, they were fast, they were twitchy, they were, everybody hoard the armor so the other guy can't get the big gun and kill. Like, they were a very specific type of shooter. This didn't look like that, so I'm hoping that changes in design, but I don't know. I just don't think it looked fast enough to get the true essence of what that's meant to be. Then I also put Doom Snap Map is a great idea if the community is diverse and dedicated enough. So they showed this idea of having the ability to customize and create your own levels and your own, scenarios that's really easy, and you don't need any kind of training or experience in being able to do so, which to me is always a great idea. But it's the same kind of thing as any create your own type of stuff. They're only as good as the people who spend the time to make them, and if you're not a creative kind of guy, you're going to be relying on people who are, and you'd never know if these things are going to take off. And as impressive as this is, Timesplitters 2 had it, because I used to make maps and game modes for that game, and it was tricky as shit. You could barely do anything because of the technology's limitations, but this is not a new notion or a new idea, so as much as I want to praise them, it isn't new, but it is incredibly cool, and it could be really good. Then we have Battlecry. So Battlecry turns up. It looks weird, guys. It looks kind of cartoony, kind of class-based, combat-y. It reminded me of something like Smite, some kind of free-to-play MOBA type deal, only from a different perspective. And I don't really know what the game is. I truly don't. It looked kind of colourful. There was some action happening, and they were saying how it was, all this and all that, and you just sat there watching. I don't know. And the notes I put, very promising, colourful, but very mashy, and that is just true. The combat in it looked like two people running to each other and flailing, and it looked very much indicative of kind of the Call of Duty game where whoever shoots first generally wins if there's no connection errors or issues, or unless you get the unlucky recoil or you don't flinch or whatever. So I wonder if that game's like that. If that has any kind of skill like player skill to it and actual strategy, it could be a fun game. But it just is for me. You know, I'm not gonna tell you that I'm excited for something that I don't really know much about. And then the second one was big, Dishonored 2. So I think we all knew this was coming when Bethesda, you know, showed the performance of this game. The first Dishonored did pretty well for them. You know, they're not expecting crazy numbers, but I think it achieved a nice amount of numbers, and it got some pretty good critical success from a lot of the reviews. I loved it, absolutely loved the first game. I think the level design on Dishonored is probably one of the smartest I've come across in a stealth game, so to see Dishonored 2 was great. Admittedly, they showed no gameplay, it was all trailer, it was all, you know, this kind of similar engine, but obviously nicer because it's on the next generation. But I'm absolutely sold. My notes that I put here was Arcane Studios, which is the people who make it. Next gen Dishonored. You play as the girl you saved at the end of the first game, which is the Elizabeth. She was the daughter of the Empress, if you remember. Very purdy, I put, and no release date. So, interesting things to note, they've given you a choice between playing as Corvo and playing as Elizabeth, and apparently Elizabeth has her own abilities. They're all kind of different, and she doesn't have Blink. Instead, she has this tentacle move, which is probably the equivalent of it, but it isn't Blink. And to me, Dishonored is blinking the shit out of that game, because that's where it's at its most fun. So I'll be curious to see if the game is different with her, and if it'll be a different campaign, or if there's even a co-op option. A lot of promise, a lot of interesting things, not a lot of details. All I know is Dishonored 2, very excited. Very, very excited. So the next thing they did was the Elder Scrolls Online. My notes are, they like money, so please give them more money. Jaw-breaking yawn. The game after that was Elder Scrolls card game, which I didn't get the name of it. I think it was Elder Scrolls Legends, which this stuff is either successful or it's not. With, you know, the advent of games like Hearthstone, and of course Magic has been around for ages, and to a lesser extent things like Yu-Gi-Oh! Card games are a big deal for some people, and there also can be big business. So it's one of those choices you knew was coming, but are you interested in it? Do you care? I don't. And I like card games, but Elder Scrolls has nothing endearing to me at all. You know, it is as generic as fantasy gets for me personally. So, yeah, there you go. And then Fallout 4. Fallout 4, biggest thing Bethesda showed. And this was the biggest announcement of the night. This looks so interesting, guys. So wonderfully interesting. And there were so many things I didn't know that surprised me when I was listening to it. The first one was, they started making this at the end of Fallout 3. And I don't know if that means they count building, you know, the engine that ran Skyrim as working on this, or if they were just being hyperbolic, but just the notion that there's been a lot of development time for this game, like 4 years of development, I think he threw the number around, is an impressive statistic, because these are a team who take the time to make something beautiful, to make something that's really, really special. And of course, it's not without its flaws, but a lot of the times it's almost more endearing because of them. And it's a truly, truly special thing when people like these, like Bethesda, do what they do, because they make games only they can make. And I love me some Fallout. So some information about the game that I put in the notes here is the game starts before the bombs. So it's going to give you a little context to exactly what's happening, which is always nice to see. And I don't know for certain, but it sounded like the male lead was voiced by, I forgot the guy's name again, the dude who was in the most recent Star Trek playing Spock. I do apologise, guys, I forgot it last night, remembered it, and I forgot it again, but it sounded a lot like that guy. Is it Zachary Levi or something? That dude. Good actor, good voice. I'm really excited, which also tells you that the new game is going to have a speaking character, so the main protagonist that you play as will now speak, so it doesn't sound like you just like a walking face, which is a pretty interesting choice to do. And it showed you a really dynamic, really natural, and just an awesome looking character customization screen, where you and your wife are fighting over mirror time in the bathroom, and changing your face on the fly without sliders, which, it's so good that, I mean, I could analyse that for hours, because I just think it's beautiful in its simplicity. And of course, sliders are some of the most oppressive and annoying looking things when you just get like a full-on Windows Excel sheet full of the bullshit. Like, I don't want to do sliders, so this now gives you a more visual representation of it, and hopefully makes it a more simple process of making something look good. Because how many times have you been on create a character, you've spent like 20 minutes doing the first 2 sliders, and then you come out of the menu and there's 50 more, and you just go fuck it and you get on with the next thing. We've all done it. You've got to be a very special person to want to do that. So much more natural, much more dynamic, looked great. I've put contextual dog commands, which it showed you in meeting up with like a German Shepherd dog thing. I don't know dogs, but it looked like crazy Alsatian-y thing. See that? No idea. But dog anyway, dog in games, you know, exaggerated dog tech, just like Advanced Warfare. However, this dog, you can point at things in the environment and it picks it up. So maybe it'll be used to loot, maybe it'll be used to distract enemies and have some kind of gameplay mechanic. At the end of the day, the dog is more than just a dog, which is good news because I think dogs are fucking stupid when they don't serve a purpose. Right, VATS now moves in slow motion. This is a big one. In the last games, the game kind of froze when you were in VATS. It didn't completely freeze, I don't think, but it gave the impression that it did. And then, of course, when you entered your commands, it kind of sped up, a little bit like a turn-based RPG. Well, now, it seems a lot more mobile. Stuff was moving, it was more dynamic, it looked more visually interesting. It could have a massive effect on gameplay and make the game tougher, but I'll be curious to see how exactly that works. Then there was an armor system. So now you can have access to different parts of your body and different ways to customize it so that you can actually get a benefit of defense, which more depth when it comes to this kind of stuff is my bread and butter. Very happy to see that, incredibly happy to know that we're going to be able to have some kind of interaction with it to make the game, you know, and tailor it to your kind of playstyle. Then there was a second screen Pip-Boy. This was crazy. Basically, there is an app coming out for the game where on your phone you can access your Pip-Boy in the game. So instead of having to constantly pause it, you can have your phone up and doing it all the time. That sounds really, really cool. It's gimmicky, it's a novelty, but I think it sounds really cool. And to make it even better for people who are crazy, you can pay like $9.99, $9.95 and get the like exclusive edition or the limited edition or whatever they're calling it, the Vault 101 edition or Vault 111. And you get the arm-mounted actual Pip-Boy that they've made, and it doesn't do anything except for hold a phone, which then has this app on, which gives the illusion of it being a Pip-Boy. But it's pretty cool for people who like that kind of stuff, and if you're a big fan, definitely had one of those giddy moments just at the thought of it, and then I realised my phone was made in like 1997, and it won't work for me, but... Then the next stuff just blew it open in really, really strange ways, which... Once you watch it, like, what will this game not do? And I've put on the notes, scrap materials and rebuild things, which is a very oversimplified way of saying the game allows you to dismantle almost anything you can see. Anything in the environment can be reduced down, and the resources you get from it can be used to rebuild. And in the video, it showed him essentially rebuilding a settlement. He was using generators and controlling cables to power certain things in the place, and then it all culminated in the ability to have this kind of economy where you send out Brahmin caravans, or you defend these homesteads with turrets and with fortifications that you set up yourself and build. And he made a very, very intelligent point of saying all of this was completely superfluous and optional. You do not have to do it if you don't want to, but there is a wealth of gameplay to be found if you choose to, and that is the best kind of thing where even their side stuff is more interesting than some games, and I thought it was beautiful to see. I have no idea how it will work, but it just looked really, really interesting. Then they showed items in the world actually going towards modifying gear, is what I've put down here. So, we've all played Fallout and Skyrim and Morrowind. You pick up a lot of shit on those games, and a lot of it is so bullshitty and worthless and useless that it actually goes into a section that's called junk. And that is a section that serves no purpose outside of selling it, probably, for bottle caps or gold. So now, it seems like the stuff you pick up actually has a purpose, and it actually will go intelligently into modifying your gears and your weapons. And that to me is brilliant, because how many times have you been playing The Last of Us or a game of that nature where you've picked up a bottle or something and some scissors and all this kind of interesting stuff, and then at the end of it you made a baseball bat with nails in it? when you didn't even pick up any fucking nails or whatever. You know, just the kind of immersion-breaking moment of, I got a bottle there, and I got this, and I got that. Why can't I make something that reflects what I'm picking up, rather than, this is the universal symbol for picking something up. And I always hated that. But this could be taking it to the next step and something that could be really, really interesting. Of course, we have no idea what it is. It showed you a pretty quick montage of shit happening when you was looking through all these different schematics. The fidelity could be anything, but it looks real interesting, and that's the most important part. I put crafting looks legit, and it really does. Crafting now looks like it's got such a good emphasis on, so I'm super excited for that. And then there was a big montage of stuff happening. People getting the limbs blown off, you know, all kinds of weird stuff. A couple of the bullet points that I jotted down was Chopper Gunner, because he called in an Enclave flying ship. He got on it, he was on a mounted gun, and he was drive-bying things with the turret, just like you would in Modern Warfare 2. Then there was a jetpack. It showed you a guy wearing power armor jetpacking around. It also showed you a power armor that the character climbs into rather than it being a piece of gear, which I'm a bit mixed on that because I like the power armor as armor, and I'm not the biggest fan of getting in big old slow robots, but I guess we'll see when we play it. And then the biggest, most important part of this announcement, which just completely crushed and slayed nearly all the other conferences in my opinion, was when he said November 10th, 2015. To which I put on my notes, fuck yes. This game is coming out this year, guys. A lot of people are saying how 2016 is going to be such a good year. Look at the year we're in. It's been a little bit sparse, but Bloodborne, Witcher 3, Batman, Metal Gear Solid, like, this year is just as good, guys. It truly is. And now with this, I cannot wait. And the question that a lot of people in the chat were asking me when this aired was, would I be doing a blind playthrough? And you can bet your ass I'm making a blind playthrough for this game, because I love Fallout 3 and I can't wait to play this. It should be really, really great. And then the final thing, they mentioned something called Fallout Shelter, which is an iPhone game, which I've put here, Vault Life FTL style. It's you get to essentially play The Sims, play, you know, like Sim City or Sim Roller Coaster Tycoon, or whatever you want to bloody call it, in a vault, and it looked cartoony, it looked pretty interesting, but couldn't give a single shit for me personally. And that was pretty much Bethesda's press conference. No real surprises for me, but that release date for Fallout 4 is pretty epic. I think they did a decent job of bringing some things to the table, and it was a successful conference, but I would have liked to have seen more risks. But we know in today's industry that just doesn't really happen. So a decent press conference and some really, really heavy hitters in that, but with no dates, it's hard to get too excited for anything on here except for Fallout 4. But thank you very much for watching, and you take care now.